Hello and welcome to our webinar, Research Tips and CILA Resources. My name is Serena Bhatia and I am a Senior Staff Attorney with the Children's Immigration Law Academy, or CILA. This 101 webinar is being recorded on September 26, 2022. It is one of a series of webinars we have available for advocates who are new to the field of children's immigration law. Please note that immigration law changes rapidly. It is important to stay up to date with case law, policy updates, and any procedural changes. CILA is a project of the American Bar Association's Commission on Immigration. CILA is a legal resource center, and we aim to build the capacity of legal service organizations and pro bono attorneys to represent children facing deportation. There is no right to appointed counsel in immigration court, even for children, and we believe every child should have an attorney at their side in their immigration proceedings. All right, I'm going to dive into where to start when researching for your cases. So there are two main types of resources you can look to for research. There are primary sources, which are the statutes, regulations, case law, and agency adjudications, and secondary sources like books and guides, such as CILA's practice materials and such. For this presentation, we are assuming that you do not have access to Westlaw or Lexis, so we will be citing two publicly available online resources. The two key primary sources of law you may want to start with are the relevant statute and the relevant regulations. The Immigration and Nationality Act is the foundation for immigration law. It is found in Title VIII of the United States Code. The executive departments and agencies promulgate and administer regulations that go into detail about how the statutes will be applied and enforced. Regulations are binding, just like statutes and case law. In their final form, they are organized by agency and then published in the Code of Federal Regulations, or CFR. You can find Title VIII of the CFR, subtitled Aliens and Nationality, just like Title VIII of the U.S. Code, on the website, on the USCIS website, or you can go to the U.S. Government Publishing Office at the website cited here. You'll want to be aware of when the regulations were last updated. For example, the regulations regarding SIJS were just recently updated this year on April 7th, 2022. Prior to that, they had last been updated in 1993 and were therefore very out of date. Another important reminder regarding regulations is that government websites publish all of the regulations that haven't been rescinded or vacated. So some could show up on that website, on the websites, even if they have been enjoined. The American Immigration Lawyers Association, or AILA, has a helpful practice alert with this reminder. Subscription research websites have flags or notes on their web pages to indicate regulations that are enjoined. These include AILA Link, Westlaw, and Lexis. A free alternative to find some regulations in their currently effective form is the 2022 annual edition of the Code of Federal Regulations. It includes only those regulations with effective dates prior to December 31st, 2021. Going on to case law and adjudications. With federal case law, it's important to be aware of what circuit you're in. For example, Texas is in the 5th Circuit, so immigration judges will look to that circuit's case law. You may find some helpful or relevant case law in the federal courts for visa petition appeals, such as SIJ status, as well as elements of asylum, such as the particular social group. The Administrative Appeals Office, or AAO, is the administrative agency charged with review of USCIS decisions, such as denial of a CIJS petition. It generally issues appellate decisions as non-precedent decisions, meaning it applies existing law and policy to the facts of a given case. Although these decisions are not binding on adjudicators, they are still helpful in interpreting current USCIS policy. After review by the Attorney General, the AAO may also issue precedent decisions to provide guidance to adjudicators and the public on the proper interpretation and administration of immigration law and policy. Additionally, USCIS may adopt a non-precedent decision in order to provide policy guidance to USCIS employees in making determinations on applications and petitions for immigration benefits. For example, USCIS had previously adopted 3 AAO decisions relating to SIJS in October 2019. However, the policy guidance set forth in these adopted decisions was recently incorporated into the updated SIJS regulations in April 2022, and as a result, superseded these 3 decisions. Non-precedent decisions are published by USCIS on its website. Additionally, the National Immigration Project of the National Lawyers Guild updates their index of unpublished AAO decisions 3 times a year. Then we have the Board of Immigration Appeals, or BIA, which reviews immigration judge decisions from court. It issues both precedent decisions and non-precedent decisions. The precedent decisions are published on the BIA website. Non-precedent unpublished decisions are cataloged in an index available for subscription by the Immigrant and Refugee Appellate Center, or IRAC. Moving on to secondary sources, we have agency policy guidance. These are when a government agency needs to establish policies that are more specific than the regulations. Generally speaking, Congress allows agencies to do that so long as general statements of policy and rules of agency, organization, procedure, or practice don't exceed or change the regulations. This slide has some examples of the guidance policies published by some of the agencies. For example, here is the site to the USCIS policy manual. It is instructive to determine USCIS policy guidance on how the agency interprets its own regulations and relevant statutes. Other secondary resources are books, guides, and practice advisories. Sometimes starting with a secondary source can be helpful, especially if you are short on time or it is a brand new area of law to you, because they have summarized the statutes and pulled in the relevant case law. Immigration policy is pretty dynamic, so you always want to check the date the resource was created and double check to make sure that things have not changed. The Kurzban's Immigration Law Sourcebook is an CILA publication and a great legal reference. If your organization doesn't have a budget to purchase the latest Kurzban's, one option may be to reach out to immigration law firms in your area to see if they would be willing to donate a past edition of this book. The book is updated every 2 years or so. I've also listed here a resource that is Texas specific, but hopefully there is something similar in your state if you are outside of Texas. The Texas State Law Library allows its cardholders free remote access to their digital collection, which includes access to CILA Link. CILA Link is an online research database created and maintained by CILA. It includes access to all of their publications, including Kurzban's and the Asylum Primer. The Immigrant Legal Resource Center, ILRC, has great publications as well, including a guide on special immigrant juvenile status, or SIJS. They also have a section of practice advisories for advocates who work with immigrant youth. Clinic and CGRS are 2 other legal resource centers that have resources for the VERA network targeted towards children who enter unaccompanied. And of course, we have a ton of resources available on our website as well. We will take a deep dive on those at the end of the presentation. A note on cultural competency and humility when working with unaccompanied children. This starts with an understanding of your own culture and beliefs and where they come from. That there are other cultures that do things differently from your culture. That this is not good or bad, but just is a fact. And that in order to communicate effectively with and advocate well for your client, you need to recognize how their culture makes them who they are. Actively becoming aware of other cultures is a practical and necessary way of communicating with and effectively representing your clients. To be culturally competent, attorneys must be aware of their implicit bias. So cultural humility involves self-reflection and self-critique, learning about your own beliefs and cultural identities, including your own privilege. There are a lot of resources to learn more about these concepts. There are also resources posted here on the slide to learn more about the different cultures and contexts, including what's going on in the countries where the youth are migrating from. Lastly, just a reminder that that it's important to actively learn and listen from your client, but also take some time to learn on your own as well so that you have a better understanding. Here are CILA's tips on research. Always start with the statute and regulations if applicable. However, if you really have no idea where to look, Google is always a great starting place. I can't tell you how many times I have Googled what is an NTA or what are pleadings when I first started practicing in this field. We suggest starting with the why. So why are you researching the topic? Why is it important to your case? Additionally, start with a question or a specific issue. What am I trying to find out? Then break it up into more in-depth questions and take it from there. We suggest setting aside time to regularly check recent developments and changes in your field, such as developments in case law, for example. Don't be afraid to ask for help if you get stuck. You can ask a colleague, ask us here at CILA, or someone else informed in the field. If possible, to obtain access to CILA link. That can be a very powerful tool. And finally, the Ninth Circuit has an immigration outline that is also a helpful resource. Here are some additional resources to help with legal research. There's a recording of a webinar CILA did in collaboration with the National Immigration Litigation Alliance, or NILA, on our website. The topic is how to approach immigration legal research. There's also on the top right, CILA's resource, which is just a chart of helpful resources in representing unaccompanied children. It's a summary list that contains all of the resources we've talked about so far, and the places to find those resources online and more. This was just recently updated in July 2022. And finally, the Georgetown Law Library. It has an extensive research guide, and it helps you again to locate the sources of immigration law. Moving on to how to stay connected with CILA and access our resources. Here's a reminder of the services we provide here at CILA. We are based in Houston, Texas. However, we now provide national services. So we provide technical assistance regarding case-specific questions relating to children and youth with immigration cases. We also offer 4 national working groups, which are the topics of which are asylum, SIJS, pro bono, and detained work and representation of unaccompanied children, and 2 Texas-based working groups, which are Houston SIJS and social work. The purpose of these working groups is to provide spaces for advocates to collaborate. CILA also provides trainings, such as this one, and written resources. We also host a platform featuring pro bono opportunities across the country and provide resources related to pro bono. To offer these additional services nationwide, the CILA team has expanded recently. We recently added 2 new senior staff attorneys, Nadia Danilovich, who's based in Chicago, and me, who I am based in San Diego, and we are recent additions to the CILA team. Technical assistance is our bread and butter. So this is a place for you to ask us individualized case questions. We are available for questions relating to immigration, children's immigration nationwide, and specific and available in Texas is social work related questions and individualized case questions. Some examples of requests that we can respond to in technical assistance. You might be working on an SIJS case for a detained child and want to know how specific consent works. You might be drafting a motion for an upcoming immigration court hearing and want to ask questions about the relevant case law, or any procedural questions or best practices in working in a trauma-informed way with your clients. These are all reasons you can reach out to us and more, and we would be more than happy to help. That is what we are here for. We are also open to receiving pro bono program related questions. So if you need to bounce ideas off or ask something, you can also email us at CILA@avacila.org. We have a blog on our website called Legal Updates. It contains a wide range of subject matter, and they're covered in a format that is very easy to understand, so it can be a great starting point for research, especially if there's a new development in immigration law and policy. Another recent addition to our website is a section called Monthly Litigation Updates. We provide summaries of BIA cases, Fifth Circuit cases, and Supreme Court cases that are relevant to children's immigration law. As mentioned, about CILA's working groups. During the working groups, and as I mentioned, the purpose of this is to learn from practitioners on the ground and current trends, provide big picture updates, and importantly, also provide connection to each other and community in this field that we work in. So during a working group, CILA will give updates on changes in law or policy, but what we want to hear more is what's happening on the ground. And as I mentioned, our goal is to facilitate information sharing. So we also ask participants and attendees to share updates from the field if you have them. Each working group meets quarterly. And as I mentioned, we have 4 national working groups and 2 Texas-based working groups. And there is additional information on the CILA website to register, and they are held virtually on Zoom. CILA's trainings, we have a lot of those upcoming and past trainings. You can access all of these on the CILA website under the trainings drop-down menu on the top right of the homepage. We have advanced trainings, which are recordings of previous live webinars. We also have recorded trainings created through our partnership with CILA. And then there's a tab for 101 webinars, which you're watching right now. So please do check it out. If you're a visual learner, these can be really helpful. CILA's written resources. These are also available on the website under the tab Additional Resources under Legal Resources. These are password protected. And so if you need the password or don't have it yet, you can email CILA at abacila.org to request the password. CILA also has a social services webpage. This is designed for social workers and staff working with immigrant youth. It has links to resources, the social work technical assistance page, as well as the sign-up link for the working group on social work for those located in Texas. CILA also has on our website a web page for pro bono coordinators. This includes various ways to connect within the community, to engage in pro bono work with attorneys who would like to or are already doing pro bono work. It also includes additional resources. Here we have CILA's pro bono platform. It's called Pro Bono Matters for Children Facing Deportation, and we host this on the CILA website. There are many children and youth who do not have representation in their immigration cases and must proceed alone. There are 18 organizations from across the country that are able to post children's cases to the platform that need pro bono representation. So there are opportunities nationwide. Here are some other CILA websites that you may want to refer to others. For other members in the community who might want to know how can they get involved, there is a Get Involved webpage on our website. For potential pro bono attorneys, which I just briefly touched on a moment ago, they can go to CILA's Pro Bono Matters for Children Facing Deportation platform. And then finally, we have a youth webpage in both English and Spanish, and that's where immigrant youth can go to find information about their case or relevant resources. Now that CILA has gone national, we also have available a monthly newsletter, and this is something you can sign up for on our website. It contains updates from the previous month regarding policy, litigation, resources, and past and upcoming trainings. We also like to celebrate the work you all do. So if there's anything in your work that you would like to have us include in the newsletter, please email us at cila@abacila.org to share those celebrations. You can sign up for the newsletter by visiting the CILA website at cilacademy.org. We're nearing the end of this webinar, and I wanted to end on a really meaningful quote that we like to share in our webinars. This quote is by Judge Schmidt, who was appointed as an immigration judge at the U.S. Immigration Court in Arlington, Virginia in May 2003. and retired from the bench on June 30th, 2016. Prior to his appointment as an immigration judge, he served as a member on the Board of Immigration Appeals, starting in February 1995. Judge Schmidt also served as board chairman from 1995 until 2001, when he chose to step down as chairman to adjudicate cases full-time. I'm just going to read it out to share with you. Judge Schmidt says, "I urge each of you in this audience to join the new due process army and stand up for the truth, justice, and the American way in our failing, misused, and politically abused United States immigration courts, and to continue the fight for years or decades if necessary until the system finally is forced to deliver on its noble but unfulfilled promise of being the world's best tribunals, guaranteeing fairness and due process for all. Harm to one is harm to all. Due process forever." Ending on this note, you all are the due process army. You are our champions for unaccompanied children. You are advocates who are guiding children through complex legal territory, and you're doing it with courage, competency, compassion, and creativity. At CILA, we are humbled every day by the resilience and courage of children who seek protection under U.S. law and the hard work and dedication of the attorneys who represent them. We remain dedicated to providing a consistent baseline of excellent resources, as well as thoughtful and quick responses to the volatile implementation of policies affecting children. Thank you so much for joining this 101 webinar on research tips and CILA resources. We hope it will serve as a good jumping off point for your own research and to give you some background so you feel more comfortable in doing this work.